This film is based on a true story. The movie begins by introducing a happy couple, Karla and Paul, currently in a Canadian psychiatric center. In October 2000, a man named Arnold sends a communication to Karla, who has just been released from prison after 8 years. He informs her that he has the opportunity to get parole for his 12-year sentence, and requests her transfer to his center for an examination to determine if she is ready for parole. When Karla arrives, Arnold comes to talk to her. Karla informs him that she graduated last month while in prison, which he appreciates. The doctor shows her photos from her marriage to Paul and asks how she feels. Karla tells him that Paul was very handsome and the perfect man when she met him at 18. She was in the company of a friend when Paul, Nick, and Karla's friend flirted. Paul, Karla, Nick, and Karla's friend go to their room. Shortly after entering the room, Paul and Karla begin to make love in front of their friends, leaving them astonished. She tells Arnold that Paul was older and that she wanted to show him that she was ready. The doctor mentions another instance where Karla asked Paul to handcuff her before making love. While doing this, Paul asks if she would still want him if he were a molester, and Karla tells him to go on. Currently, Karla tells the doctor that it was just a game. The doctor asks if she knew he was a suspect in a case called harassment in Scarborough. Karla says Nick and some friends of Paul saw a resemblance between Paul and the police sketch, leading the police to call him, but she thought it was just a resemblance as the police assumed. Arnold talks about Tammy, Karla's younger sister, who became close friends with Paul. He asks Karla if she was jealous, but she tells him no. In a flashback, Paul comes home with Tammy after work, and Karla gets upset, thinking they did something. Paul says he did nothing, but later admits he is interested in Tammy because she is young, but assures Karla that she is the one he loves. She kisses him and asks if Paul still wants to marry her, and Paul assures her that he does. Currently, the doctor asks Karla why she was so needy, but when she starts feeling unwell, he postpones the conversation until the next day. At night, while in the center, Karla remembers telling Paul that he is her king. In a flashback, Paul asks what would happen if the king wanted something precious, like an immaculate woman, referring to her sister. Paul suggests to Karla to sedate Tammy with an animal tranquilizer since Karla is a veterinarian. On Christmas Eve, Paul insists to Karla that it is the perfect time to carry out their plans. Karla hesitates, but then agrees. Paul adds a sedative to Tammy's drink, who is already drunk. Eventually, Tammy doesn't fall asleep, so Paul gives her another glass full of sedatives. Tammy faints. Paul takes out the camera and starts taking advantage of her, with Karla present. Karla seems disgusted by the whole thing, but continues to tell Paul that she's doing it because she loves him so much. At that moment, Paul tells Karla to start kissing the unconscious Tammy. When Karla hesitates, Paul slaps her for ruining the video and insults her. When they realize Tammy has stopped breathing, Karla hurries to call an ambulance, while Paul dresses Tammy. When the police arrive, they ask what happened, and Paul says they were upstairs when they suddenly heard Tammy making a noise as if she couldn't breathe. The detective stays with them, while the paramedic takes Tammy to the hospital. Soon, they receive a call informing them that Tammy has died. Currently, Karla tells Arnold the story, expressing regret for what she did. The doctor looks at her criminal record and asks why she decided to make a romantic film in which she played the role of Tammy a few weeks after her death. Karla tells him that Paul blamed her for Tammy's death, so she suggested making a film to help him remember Tammy. Karla says that Paul was satisfied only for a short period because he had many other things on his mind. She recounts that Paul was obsessed with the recording he made with Tammy on Christmas Eve. It seems that Paul showed Karla the footage many times and showed a part of it to Nick, where he expresses remorse for Tammy's death. Nick tries to console him and proposes that Paul join him in his cigarette smuggling business. When they move into a house together, their dog relieves itself on the floor, and Paul tells Karla to clean it up. When Karla slows down the cleaning, Paul slaps her and tells her to do as he says. The doctor asks if this was typical when they moved into the new house, and Karla tells him yes. But sometimes it was amusing because they were free. Karla informs the doctor that when they moved into the house, Paul stopped hiding his activities with other women from her because he knew she couldn't take him to the police due to the footage with Tammy. On one occasion, Paul went out at night to take advantage of a woman. The next morning, when Karla asked where he had been, he told her he had just taken advantage of a woman and showed her the lingerie. Karla hugged Paul from behind, told him she loved him very much, and wanted the relationship to be like it was at the beginning. Karla tells the doctor that she spent days when Paul left her alone, thinking about Tammy and how she could continue to interest him because she needed him and loved him. Karla tries to make love to him, but he tells her he's tired. That night, Paul goes out, and Karla suspects he's up to something bad, but she can't stop him. Outside, he meets a woman named Tina and starts a conversation with her, luring her into his car to give her a cigarette, but then covers her mouth and threatens her with a knife. When Paul returns home, he informs Karla that a guest has arrived. Downstairs, Paul blindfolds Tina and undresses her while filming everything. Karla goes down to watch but says nothing. The next morning, Karla hears Tina's cries for help but does nothing. She tells Paul she's tired of being alone, so he invites her to have fun with him and Tina. Paul asks Tina if she would like to sleep with two people, then takes advantage of her. While Karla kisses Tina, he removes her blindfold and tells Tina to keep her eyes closed. Tina opens her eyes and sees them. Paul panics and tells Karla they should kill Tina to prevent her from telling the police everything. Soon, Karla starts to get scared as she watches Paul suffocate Tina to death, and then they both go to bed. The next day, Paul tells Karla he will help him hide Tina's body in cement. Currently, the doctor asks Karla why she didn't leave him. Karla tells him there are 2 weeks left until their wedding. The doctor asks about the honeymoon, and Karla tells him that Paul beat her because she wouldn't let him flirt with a woman. During a party at home with some of Paul's friends, he starts kissing one of the girls in front of everyone. Karla goes upstairs and lets Paul go with a woman to the bathroom while friends listen. When Paul finishes, one of the guys, Doug, tells Paul he's treating Karla badly, so Paul insults him, and Nick starts beating Paul. Karla goes down to help Paul, and they both kick everyone out. Finally, the holidays arrive, and Karla plans to spend time alone with Paul. Instead, Paul takes Karla to help him pick up other women. They approach a woman named Caitlin and ask for directions. Later, Paul threatens Caitlin with a knife to convince her to get into the car. When they take Caitlin home, Paul takes out the video camera to film her. Meanwhile, the police arrive where Caitlin's shoe was found after her parents reported her missing. Eventually, Caitlin submits and tells Paul that he is the strongest man at St. Mary, the school he attended. When he's done, he asks Karla for a tissue and slaps her. When Paul leaves, Caitlin asks Karla why she's with him, but Karla tells her she doesn't understand. The next morning, Paul shows her the footage of Caitlin's parents crying on the news, mocking them in front of her. When Karla enters the room, she sees Paul strangling Caitlin. Currently, Karla tells the doctor that it was easy to watch Paul kill for the second time, and she felt nothing. The doctor asks if she killed Tammy, and Karla becomes angry. In a flashback, the police go to Paul's house to ask him about Caitlin because his car matches the description of one suspected in the kidnapping of the late Caitlin. Paul talks to them without any issue. That evening, Paul brags to Karla about being tough when the police arrived. Paul notices she's not smiling and hits her again. Later, in July, they cross the border for cigarette smuggling after a fight with Nick. The police stop them because they look suspicious. When they pass the checkpoint, Paul beats Karla because he almost got caught by the police. That night, Paul catches Karla writing a note and beats her again. Karla calls Molly to help her. When Karla leaves with them, Paul calms down and asks Karla to come talk to him. When Karla returns, Paul tells her she can't leave him because he will send the footage of him killing her sister to her parents. That night, Paul goes to punish her. He ties her up and takes advantage of her. When he's done, he tells her he's too nice to her, so he throws her down the stairs and locks her in a dark basement. When she tries to escape, he beats her again. The next day, Molly receives a call from the clinic because Karla is injured. Karla tells them that Paul will kill her if they leave, so they promise to take her to a distant relative. After Molly and Dan file a complaint, the police come to arrest Paul for a night. Paul's arrest sparks the police's interest until his DNA matches the identity of the killer. Karla goes to confess everything to a lawyer, hoping to get immunity because she didn't kill the girls. Later, Karla goes to a club and hooks up with a stranger while Paul records an apology message for her. In the present, Karla says she felt capable of starting over. In another flashback, Karla watches the news and learns that Paul was arrested after they found more evidence linking him to the Scarborough case. Later, in court, Paul plays the victim and tells them she killed all the girls he brought home. Karla denies it but is still sentenced to 12 years, while Paul is sentenced to life in prison without parole. In the present, the doctor releases Karla after writing a report on what she is capable of in the future. In an interview, she states that people might believe she killed Tina and Caitlin, but she didn't. It appears she wasn't released on parole because the doctor described her as egocentric and narcissistic, deducing that her behavior cannot be explained solely by Paul's abuse. The doctor also wrote about her lack of empathy for the victims. For years later, Karla finishes her sentence and is released, but the court imposes several restrictions on her freedom. In October 2005, after being released, Karla never sent a letter of remorse.